There was a reason why I'm wrapping up Valentine's Half Month 6 before taking a break off of half of this month and in March, well, up until the final days of March. With this episode, I want to dance with my buddy from Hailey's on it. Because not only that this episode is really good, it's also the episode, well, it ended this show on a cliffhanger, considering months ago, since the beginning of October, Disney had cancelled Hailey's on it. But we'll get to that later in this review. The plot is that everyone is playing an app game called Snack Match, which they will get paid if the food that comes with the food, mainly peanut butter and jelly, you name it, if you understand what type of foods or stuff goes together. Scott and Hailey's match is about match, so this leads to Scott to believe that with a match that he's paired with Destiny is good for him, but on the other hand, he really wants to ask Hailey out to the dance. And since his match with Destiny isn't working out with them being total opposites, and after talking to Christine about the true meaning of matching, considering that Snack Match has so many incorrect answers that people have been getting, this gave him the idea, since that Hailey picked lobster, and then when he picks Snack Match again, he picks butter, which butter and lobster go together. So after leaving Oceanside High School and going all the way to Hailey's house, it's been revealed that she's taking Sandre, who she saw a picture online, to the dance. Truth be told, I did see screenshots of Hailey taking Sandre to the dance, but I also saw the ending of the episode even before watching this episode from beginning to end. It's pretty obvious that Beta showed Scott the main item list that Hailey is hesitant to do, and that's obviously kissing Scott on the lips. Truth be told, this cliffhanger of an ending not only sums up a lot onto why there are some fans who enjoy this show, but at the same time, this show still had less respect than the ghost of Molly McGee, and the fact that that show ended too early, it still had a second season. I'm just gonna get this out of the way before we talk about the characters. I wasn't really expecting this show to have 3 seasons before it aired. Like, I was upset with The Ghost of Molly McGee and The Owl House not getting the 3rd season, but at this point, with this show starting from scratch, I really expected this show to get a 2nd season and just end it with the finale in season 2. Because giving yourself more hope is just going to make you a lot more disappointed. So considering that with this show at least getting a 2nd season is honestly enough for everyone, even if people wanted more from this show. But for me personally, it really feels like that it's literally the only thing that Disney would do for this show. They didn't need to end on a cliffhanger, and considering of how this episode ends, it really gave you the understanding that the second half of this season was originally part of season 2, considering that Disney have greenlighted more episodes as time went by after November of 2021, where they greenlit this show. However, they disappoint me again, except that they made it even worse than the disservice that they gave towards The Owl House and The Ghost of Molly McGee. And truth be told, despite what people may think about this show, if they prefer other Disney Channel cartoons, I really feel like that if this is going to be a trend of ending shows just by one season, then I'm pretty sure that Disney are probably going to do a much more worse disservice than Nickelodeon, because at the very least, the Nicktoons at least get a second season, and if this is going to be a trend of these shows only getting one season that isn't Cliff, Big City Greens, or possibly Primo's, even though I didn't find that show as bad as what other people say, since I actually watched episodes of it that actually made me enjoy it. I'm really believing that cable cartoons, as in cable television, are dying, which it's one thing that streaming service is becoming the main priority, but since that's also having problems, it's honestly really irritating and difficult to pick which side that you're supposed to be on when it comes to promoting a show. But since that Disney isn't doing that, it just proves to me that shows like Hailey's on it, that isn't slice of life, which it is, but not the same ways as Big City Greens, where it adds something different in order to make it different from those shows by having characters that aren't like those characters. Then honestly, they're playing it way too safe towards cartoons that aren't popular IPs from the past. Mainly cartoons from the 1980s, 90s, 2000s, and early 2010s. If you include The Amazing World of Gumball, which is mostly debatable because it deserves a final season, regular show, and Adventure Time. I would go on, but with this being a review on the final episode of this show, I really need to discuss about Scott's character, because if I did talk about his character from the first episode that I've talked about from this show, mainly involving his relationship with Christine, I have to be real with you that this episode really made me see the other side of Scott, considering that the majority of this show, he's always a goofball. The biggest difference in this episode, in comparison to previous episodes, is that while Hailey is a main character in this episode when it comes to character progression, Scott gets the most attention when it comes to his feelings towards Hailey instead of the other way around. Through the majority of the series, Hailey has been doing item list after item list, and with the direction of what they are taking with her character, they literally want to make sure that she has a purpose of doing her item lists when it came to her future self coming back from the past. But since we're focusing on Scott's perspective rather than Hailey's, it really gave you the impression that if it was the other way around, it would have been too predictable and it would have made Scott's character a bland goofball. I will admit, it was awkward to see Scott the way he is throughout the series, and the fact that I'm not really a shipper between Hailey and Scott. But considering that that's the main focus of this entire series since the very beginning, it really sums up the nature that Scott isn't like how he was after watching the final episode. And if you sit through the entire series and not seeing bits and pieces of the final episode up until reaching to it, you can totally understand that Scott is the type of person that only thinks about exciting things, but at the same time, when it comes to the scenarios that Hailey gets into when it comes to list items, he never ever takes it seriously, unlike Hailey. And truth be told, that really made me understand why they made his character the way that he is. Being a goofball up until this episode. And in all honesty, the fact that this show ended on a cliffhanger, I'm pretty sure that his character would have been improved when it came to the truth being revealed to him that he's going to kiss Hailey on the lips, to where the realization would have happened much more sooner. But I'm pretty sure that if they just do it right away, then this entire show wouldn't even happen. When it comes to bad episodes, having characters not doing the deeds early on would make the episode insufferable to sit through, which does happen in some occasions. But when it comes to this show and this finale, it really gave you the understanding that it's building up not only Hailey but also Scott. And I have to admit, even though that I'm not a fan of the shipping between Scott and Hailey, I really appreciate Scott's character a lot more than how he was early on. Especially when it came to his 2 conversations with Christine about the matchmaking app, and the other conversation, well, they witnessed that Hailey is going out with Sanjay to the dance. Even though that they arrived at the dance and they arrived later, but truth be told, this is a demonstration that I really wanted these characters to improve, but no matter how different a cartoon is, this always gets the short end of the stick, except it's much more worse than the Ghost and Martin McGee. And even if I am supposed to be aware that not every single Disney Channel cartoon is going to be successful, if you ask me, if you really think that this show doesn't deserve to get renewed or because it's boring or and that type of stuff, then you weren't me when I watched the entire season. It may be the entire series, but truth be told, the entire season is still an entire season of building up the characters that should have continued on with another season and not on a cliffhanger. And the sad thing about this entire thing, which I don't use the term sad in cases, but when Hailey ditched her list items, since that the list shouldn't control her life, she's in control of her own life, really gave me the impression is that the terrible future happened and she didn't do anything since that the show ended on a cliffhanger. I'm gonna be truthful. If you were thinking about this after watching this episode, and then months later the show ended on a cliffhanger, I can instantly feel for you. Even though that I don't use the term sad multiple times since that I've outgrown it, for this moment in particular, I just think that it's perfectly described on what would have happened after the show since it ends on a cliffhanger. At times, this show doesn't need to be successful when it comes to popularity, but when it comes to being successful, it is being a cartoon of its own. And that is something that I really appreciate from other original cartoons, because I honestly wanted this show to at least get a second season, knowing of how things got worse and worse with each cartoon that Disney had released. Amphibia reached 3 seasons. The Owl House, despite reaching 3 seasons, it was just not dissolved. It just didn't dissolve an actual 3rd season instead of just 3 44-minute specials. The Ghost of Martin McGee not getting a 3rd season, and now this not getting a 2nd season. Honestly, I'm fully aware of the situation going on when it comes to Disney as a company rather than Disney Channel as a whole. But the fact that they removed this show days after confirming that it was cancelled, it really gave me the impression that payouts or tax write-offs or whatever seriously needs to be handled. Granted, I can understand them continuing as a company, but at the same time with the decisions when it comes to movies and whatnot, when it comes to live-action remixes, along with other things that they should have never done when it comes to stupid ideas, I really can't be able to side with them completely, and the only people I can side with them the most is Disney Channel, itself, since that even if it may be safer compared to live action movies or animated movies in general, since that they're higher mainstream animation compared to cartoons, it doesn't change the fact that what Disney Channel is doing with cartoons is way more better than basically anything of what Disney is doing when it comes to mainstream entertainment. It's not really a surprise, but no matter how I see people thinking that streaming is a bad idea, but at the same time cable is dying, you can't be able to make me pick one when it came to two boats being difficult to sit and move in general, judging the fact that it can't move forward when it came to the reality that we're living in. And since that this decade has becoming a really terrible decade for cartoons, I really have a bad feeling that if there's going to be another Disney Channel cartoon in the works that isn't like Big City Greens, Primos, or Cliff, then it's probably going to get less attention than Hailey's on it. I'm really predicting that that would happen, but I'm also hoping that it doesn't. Even though I had to pirated this show to watch the remaining episodes since it got removed from Disney Plus, at the very least, I at least watched this entire show, which is something that I don't usually do nowadays due to my slow binge watching. But if you ask me, I tried to give this show a chance, and after getting through this final episode, it really made me convinced that it deserves a second season, but it didn't. And thinking about the cliffhanger itself, it's really impossible to consider what this show would have been when it came to its second season. You can say that it should deserve a third season, but by the looks of the executives in Disney and the company itself, a second season would have been enough to make all of us occupied. It may not be the exact amount of episodes from this season, but at the same time, it's better to at least get everything that the creators really want to showcase in the second season, rather than being told that their show, has ended abruptly, to where it made some of Hailey's On It fans, well, they think that Hailey failed her mission when it came to the main list item. Well, the bad future happened, and her future self probably never came back because the future didn't happen. I may upset those fans after stating that minutes ago, but if that's the sad truth of the cliffhanger of this show in general, then I have to say the truth, since that there was no other way for this show to get a second season due to it being cancelled. So, that was the final review for Valentine's Half Month 6, and while it may be a depressing way to wrap up this schedule, at the very least, it's bound to have Valentine's Half Month 6 revived, considering that I canceled it last year due to being stressed with too many projects in the way. So if this is the last time I'm going to be doing Valentine's Half Month 6, it's better, and possibly in the following years, I'm just going to use up the entire month of February rather than just doing one half of it. Granted, I did go against that promise when it came to doing a few videos in the second half of February, but for real, I am going to be taking a break off of half of February, and the only videos that I might do are either update videos and possible reaction videos, but I don't usually do those a lot. As for Hailey's On It, I am planning on reviewing one episode out of the few that I want to review, and from this screenshot alone, you pretty much knew what episode I'm going to be talking about in LGBT month in the next 4 months. As for the other episodes, it's all up to me since I'm taking a break off of half of February and the majority of March, and I'm returning towards the end of that month. So, aside from the LGBT episodes, I'm planning on reviewing another episode, possibly from this show, in either April, May, or September. But at the same time, we're just gonna have to wait and see. I'm just gonna be taking a break in order to cool down, since that reviving this schedule was on my mind into sacrificing other ideas, but then again, those ideas from the past sacrificed this schedule from last year. The tradition of doing Valentine's half month has becoming a thing on this channel for 8 years, despite not having one in 2019 and 2020, including last year. But if I don't have the consideration on doing this schedule again, this would probably be the final one. But then again, I could change my mind, but at the same time, I don't want to do Halloween Mania this year. So, it's a possibility that I don't want to do this schedule again next year, but I'm just saying, I only did this schedule because it got scrapped due to other ideas, so I wanted to do this schedule again for this year because it didn't really deserve to be cancelled last year. Just like this show, even if it's different from the show, and this show is way more important than my schedule, but still. I'm giving this finale an 8 out of 10.